All right then, I'm fairly sure that was my cue. The lights sort of confirm that. Hello everyone, I'm Chris Pratt from Eurogamer, and I'm delighted to be part of what I think is probably the best EGX developer session that we've got going on here. We're going to talk about why strategy games are definitively, objectively, the best genre of video games that there is. That's pretty much what we're going to be doing here. And joining me is some people that should be able to offer some insight on this world of video games. We've got, to start with, James Shull here. You are the Digital Distribution Director.
That's right,
SEGA,
yes.
Which is a job title with some wonderful alliteration.
It has got, a little bit complicated, but basically I work with our amazing studios such as Relic, Amplitude, Sports Interactive and Creative Assembly to figure out the best way we can bring those games to you. That's basically the summary.
All right, I was going to ask you what it was exactly, but that does it. We've also got Kevin McDowell here. You're the art director for Total War.
I'm the art director for Total War. I've worked at Creative Assembly for 16 and a half years. I've pretty much been involved in all the development of Total Wars. Right? Yeah.
Wow, okay, amazing. And we've also got, I'm not going to mention your surname, I did it earlier and I still feel bad. We've got Jeff Spock, the narrative director on the Endless series. Hello.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that.
You've been at Amplitude Studios since the very start as well, right? You are a co-founder.
Yes, I have the honor to be one of the co-founders of Amplitude Studios. So I've been involved in all the games. And now we are working with SEGA and Creative Assembly, so we're pretty excited about the future.
This is excellent. We've got some real veterans on this stage then. And we've got Amplitude sitting next to Creative Assembly. Isn't it nice? All my favorite.
When SEGA bought Amplitude, we got their games for free. So, yeah.
Is that how that works?
That works both ways.
Okay. Man, I've loads of Total War games as well.
I've only been at SEGA for 8 years, not since the beginning of SEGA, because that would make me very old. So just to clarify.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I think before we jump into a Q&A on stage, and then eventually we're going to open up to the audience questions, I believe we have a sizzle reel showing all of your video games. So let's do that.
SEGA.
All right, I think we get it. You guys have got quite a lot of games in development. All right. Specifically, you've got a lot of strategy games in development. That's why you're here. I'm going to start with you, James. I thought Sega did Sonic and some consoles or something. Why have you started buying some of the world's best strategy game developers? What's going on there?
Well, I think it's something we really started to understand a lot more about. And if you look at strategy as a genre, it's something that you can debate, and we all know roughly what it means. But every game has a strategy. You know, even Pac-Man, you're playing Pac-Man, you want to have a strategy. But I think as Sega came out of the hardware manufacturing business and was evolving and finding its way, we picked up Creative Assembly and Sports Interactive. So we then had Football Manager and the Total War series, and we learnt a bunch out of those. And the success we had, that enabled us to go and acquire Relic, and then more recently we've acquired Amplitude. And we've just found ourselves in this position where we think we've got a pretty good idea about strategy games, and we want to learn a bunch more, and we've got these amazing brands, right? And it's really a very nice place to be.
That's a good answer. Okay, so Amplitude Studios have just joined the Sega family. What's that been like, other than getting some free games, which is a bonus to start with? Jeff, are they being nice to you, is what I'm asking.
Right. There's a lot of concern initially about the idea of no longer being an indie, because when you found a company, you sort of to do what you want to do, to make the games you want to make, to not have somebody looking over your shoulder. I think the great thing about SEGA, I mean, this happened 2 months ago, so far it's been fantastic. They've given us a lot of support in publicity and marketing and presence at shows like this. So now, instead of having to worry about not just the game, but how to sell it and how to get it out there and how to meet people and how to find journalists, we can just make the game. And that's been a really phenomenal change. So we're really looking forward to moving ahead with this.
Sure. Kevin, you've been there the longest, I guess, on the development side of things. Having a bunch of strategy developers under the same sort of umbrella, do you guys talk to each other? Is there like an email chain where you exchange strategy tips? And can I join it?
Or is it cat photos? I'm just curious.
Oh, well, the strange answer to that is that we actually don't have as much contact as you would think. I think we're rooted in independent studios, and we're all quite independently minded, and we've got our own ideas about which way we want to approach the strategy genre. So, in a way, and partly to allay your fears, in 2005, when SEGA bought Creative Assembly, we had the same kind of idea when SEGA came in. We're thinking, well, why are SEGA buying us, and what's going to happen? What are they going to do to us? But the fact of the matter is that they supported everything that we do, and they bought us to be us, and they really wanted us to develop our own games and to continue on with what we're already doing. So I think that's kind of the way that all of the various SEGA strategy studios work. We're all very independently minded. We keep our independence, and we keep our own ideas about what strategy is, and we're free. SEGA keeps us free to keep pushing our own way.
Yeah, I guess we should say, despite the fact that you are both strategy developers, you make very different types of strategy games. One is a 4X, and one is, I guess, grand strategy. Is that how you'd
Yep.
Like, do you see a lot of similarities between Total War and Endless Space, or are they actually very distinct within that genre?
I think the games that we do appeal to similar players. Like somebody who plays Endless Space is probably going to be interested in playing Warhammer Total War. And it's a matter of playing a game where you've got a long-term goal in mind and trying to achieve that long-term goal.
This could perhaps be an awkward question, but do you play each other's games? Like James, I know you've racked up some serious hours.
Yeah. I've got, I think, nearly 1,000 hours on Empire. I've got well over 100 hours on Endless Space, and then FM. You don't even want to ask about my Football Manager saves. They go on for days. But we do play a lot of games, and we all gamers within SEGA, and we play a lot of everybody else's games as well. And, from our sort of thought process and the way we deal with studios is exactly as these guys have said, is to leave them independent. We can offer a whole load of intelligence and experience from how to do the sort of publishing side. And we will debate and discuss stuff with our studios, but they make the games. I'm not a game developer, wouldn't dream of it.
Sure. Jeff, you were saying in the session you did earlier today that you definitely, you have to play all the 4X games in that scene, partly because you're a 4X fan, I imagine, but also because you want to see how other games are developing. Do you look at a series like Total War and pick things out and go, oh, actually, this could work for Endless in a slightly different way?
I think if you walk through the studio at lunchtime, you'll see, because the Total War just came out, you see a lot of that on the screens.
And it's free, and you got a free code.
Yeah. What can you say? It's like candy, Yeah, sure. But we all play a lot of strategy games. We see people playing Overwatch, playing other things as well. But a lot of fans of the Paradox games, a lot of fans of games that that we didn't develop, but you learn something from every game you play. I learned stuff when I was writing horse riding games for little girls. Every game is a learning experience, and we share a lot. And we'll see. We put out Endless Space, and then a couple of years later, we saw other strategy games that clearly took, shall we say, inspiration, and that's great. That's how we all move ahead. That's how we all move forward. I have no problem with that.
Jeff, I'm sorry, you can't get away with saying I learned things whilst making horse riding games for little girls without at least elaborating a little bit. what did you learn whilst making horse riding games for little girls that works in endless space?
Well, it didn't really apply to 4X so much, or to fantasy,
Right.
or to science fiction, but narrative structure and how you deliver it, and how you deliver it in different packages, in different ways to different age levels. It's all. I mean, if I view myself as a creator of narrative content, working in radically different genres like that is very interesting.
Kevin, do you find a similar thing at Creative Assembly that you're looking at other strategy developers like Amplitude and sort of seeing how the scene is changing, or do you try and keep, your own take removed from that, try not to be influenced by other games out there?
Well, we look at a wide variety of AAA games. That's kind of our approach, because we sell our games really on the spectacle. So we do look at a lot of strategy games, but then we look at a lot of other AAA as well.
Yep, fair enough. James, we were talking about the fact that SEGA has moved into this world in a huge way. Is strategy still a niche genre? For a long time, it was definitely considered that. What do you think? And also the rest of the panel.
Yeah, my own personal view is strategy it's a bit of an odd one, because, if I take then again, anecdotal is pretty weird, but if I look at my 4 favourite games at the moment, which is, let's say, Eastside Hockey Manager, playing Warhammer, playing Rocket League and playing Star Wars Battlefront, right? They've all got a certain strategy to them. I can't go into them and just, expect to play them. So you all have a strategy element. And another important thing we see in terms of talking to people about playing games is, yes, you've got people who are really interested in that style of game, but also people interested in football or World War II or medieval Japan. And there are people who are brought into your games by those interests as well. So it's trying to find the right way to fit and play within that space while being a strategy expert. It's interesting because it's like it's just an odd genre, isn't it? We all know what it means, but it's a tough one to try and say Football Manager is the same with Company of Heroes 2, for example.
Sure. Kevin, like with the Total War series, you need a pretty decent PC to begin with to really get the most out of your games. Does that in itself create like a niche crowd, like a certain slice of the gaming audience that you appeal to, but not necessarily the rest of it? Like, what's your experience been?
So I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay.
So to
Total
get
War
the
on ultra
most out
settings
of
is still a pretty hefty deal.
It's fairly hefty. But I don't know. Is it niche? How many millions of copies do you have to sell to not be niche anymore?
I'm not sure.
So
7.
Okay, so we're in that under those circumstances we're still niche, but when we kind of constantly make it to number 1 in Steam charts, etc. I don't know if that counts as niche.
So it has changed then, I guess, over the time that you've been at Creative Assembly.
Yeah, I think one big difference with our games, and I'm sure it applies to you guys as well, is that our games have a really long tail of selling. Like, people still go back to all of our old games. People are, right now they're playing Warhammer, but there's loads of people that are still playing Napoleon and playing Empire and playing the original Rome, and there's people still buying that stuff as well, which is great. So if it is a niche, there's the people that are inhabiting that niche are really kind of picking up everything, and they're really into it.
Sure. Jeff, what do you think? Is it any genre, and even if it is, does that necessarily matter?
I think 4X started very niche because essentially, back in the origin, it was really just sort of a spreadsheet with some graphics on top. And you had to really want to play that spreadsheet. And one of the things we've been trying really hard to do is with the user interface and with the design to make that the access to those game mechanics much easier, so that actually a much wider crowd of people, we don't want to simplify necessarily the mechanics, but we want to make them a lot more accessible, a lot more interesting, put better graphics on top, sort of turn the 4X from a little niche into something that you keep the interest in the gameplay, but you just make it available to many more people. That's certainly been part of our, dare I say, strategy as a company.
Someone had to say it. I guess the genre still has a little bit of a reputation of being an intimidating one, but once you're in, you're really in. And I think, to be honest, there is a bit of truth to the fact that strategy players do really invest in the whole genre. I definitely see that on Eurogamer. With that in mind, the fact that it can be a slightly scary genre to fall in love with, can you guys remember the moment or the game which did it for you? For me, weirdly enough, it was actually Rome Total War. I remember that game just, and the scale of it just completely blew me away. And
Thanks, man.
No worries. We didn't plan that in advance. But can you guys remember a specific moment where you were like, yeah, all right, I'm in. This is what I like.
I can tell you mine because I just told Jeff before the panel started. So I had been working on Formula One games up in Dundee, and I was wanted to go get a new job. So I went to Creative Assembly, who was very small at the time, and they were making sports games. So I was kind of like, I've been making like Formula One games, like sports games, and and this was in 2000 or 1999 or something. And they took me around the office, and we saw all the sports stuff on the ground floor. We went up and took a look around on the top floor. And on one person's screen, there was like an in-dev, pre-release version of Shogun that they're working on.
Oh, wow.
And I go, what the hell is that? And at that point, I'm like, I have to work here. I don't care what I'm working on. Like, I can work on the, crappy conversions of sports games from one platform to another, but I have to work at this company because this looks so awesome. This is amazing. And in my sketchpad, which I had with me there, I had these designs for like a game where you controlled like not one guy but like a whole group of guys, and it was sort of like a Viking Ragnarok strategy
Oh man, you
game.
went to the right place.
Yeah,
Controlling a whole group of guys.
It's like
good studio.
It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So was it like a battle scene that you kind of saw that was happening? Like
Yeah, I saw like a Shogun battle scene. I'm like, wow, it blew me away.
awesome. James, can you remember the moment for you where you like strategy games are right?
Yeah,
Quite
it
like
was
them.
early 90s, and I think it was a combination of Civ and a football management game at the time. And what I understood with playing both these games, which were very different to games that I previously played, is not only was it a challenge, but I was able to create my own narrative. And that's where it's sort of like a god mode, really. And if I look at the way, do I play Football Manager for a challenge? It gets very difficult. Or do I play Football Manager because my team, Oxford United, aren't particularly successful, although we're having a good last couple of years. But by playing Football Manager, I can create this narrative where this thing I'm interested in becomes successful, okay? And I think that's also a important part of strategy, is not only the challenge that people have, but is you can go out and create these amazing stories just by using the tools that these brilliant people come up with, and you can then go and create your own stories and histories, really.
Sure thing. Jeff, what about you? Do you remember a game or a moment that sort of convinced you that maybe you want to make these games? So you before Amplitude, you've actually worked on other strategy games as well, right?
Yeah, I started my games relatively late in my career, but back in my pre-game life, I remember getting really hooked by Civ 2, and that was like my gateway drug to 4X games, and I lost like a year of my professional life, I think, to that game almost. I was playing it constantly. And the first games I worked on were, I guess, Heroes of Might and Magic, which is strategy, but again, a very different type of strategy from either CA or us. More like Company of Heroes, I guess. We're sort of going map by map through a campaign. And that was a very interesting setup, but a very traditional narrative. And then Ruse. I don't know if there's people out there that are Ruse fans, but that was a lot of fun to do. And RTS, that was great. And then what really brought me actually into Amplitude was more the team that I was going to be working with. There's guys I knew from Ubisoft. They're like, we're going to do this studio. Do you want to come? And I thought, what a great opportunity. And once I started doing it, because it was science fiction, and I am a writer of science fiction. That's like, when I was like the 3-year-old with a crayon, I was like drawing spaceships, and that really stuck with me. So being able to combine the thrill I had playing Civ over and over and over, and science fiction. That sold me completely on the idea of Amplitude.
Yeah, Civ was the first game I think I played through the night and realised the sun had come up.
Yeah,
and that's the one you realise, I think I like this style of game.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so I guess here's the big question of the panel in my mind. What do you guys think makes a great strategy game? So, James, you mentioned that one of the things that appeals to you is sort of open-ended nature, lets you make your own decisions, your own choices.
Player choices, absolutely. You have to give people the opportunity to play the game the way they want to, and that's a strategy game. If someone wants to play it and try and defeat a second century, general from, barbarian general from Germany, then that's what they want to do. But if they want to also try a whole bunch of different strategies and change history, you have to give them that chance. And once you release a game, that's the point. People will really tell you how they play the game. That's a big learning for us is, when a game comes out, that's only really a part of the start of the dev work.
Sure. Actually, can I adjust the question slightly for you guys? I guess with your games, what do you think makes your games stand out and makes them great strategy games? Is there, with Endless or with Total War, do you think there's like a sort of defining thing?
Yeah, we've got I would say like glorious combination of empire building and grand scale strategy, and we combine that with the really visceral, energetic battles. So for us, that's kind of our key hook, really.
Jeff, what do you think? What do you think makes Endless stand out within this genre? You don't have to be humble. Come on.
No, I would not say the writing. Honestly, I think there's an awful lot of world building more than actual narrative that goes into our games. And I'm proud of what we've done in the world building, but that's not just me. That's our amazing designers. That's our amazing art department. I mean, there's an awful lot of influences there. I think we stand out in the genre for the asymmetric factions, these extreme design choices that we make, whereas where you have food, industry, dust, science, like a lot of 4X, but we'll have a faction that can't use food. They don't eat for whatever reason. And so all of a sudden, if you play them, you're almost playing a different game. So there's this asymmetry. There's, I think, a really good graphical user interface. I think we do a really good job with being able to work on the game and just be a couple clicks away from anything. And just, yeah, it's a combination of the systems, the artwork, the look, the UI. I think it makes a very nice package, and it makes 4X gaming very accessible and very, very enjoyable.
I visited Amplitude last month, and that whole thing you mentioned about how you kind of create this system and then your factions within it just like ignore some of the rules sometimes. I remember speaking to a couple of the programmers at your team. Find that interesting. A nice challenge for them to deal with.
Yeah, we give them a hard time because basically the design, we come up with like the design of the game essentially, and then it's sort of like, oh, and by the way, this faction's going to break it, and that's and we keep doing that, and that asymmetry makes it very tough to balance. So we rely a lot on the community for their feedback, for their recommendations of the gameplay's a little broken here. Can you fix this? Can you adjust that? So between them and our poor long-suffering programmers, we come out with this, I think, what's a very unique kind of gameplay.
One of the things that stands out to me with both Total War and Endless is that although you provide players with a starting kind of package, you're Rome in this period and you have like a city to deal with and some sort of basic objectives. It's both of your games are sandbox. You want the players to be in control of where they go and feel like they're in control of it. Was that always the case with your games? Did you always know that would make or break it? Perhaps after playing games like Civ, you saw that.
Yeah, I think so, and it's kind of amazing the amount that our players get into the sandbox nature of the games. We go on the forum sometimes, and people do this thing where they kind of write a narrative description of their game. So they sort of convert their game world into story, and they write these massive long stories about what's going on in the game world. It's amazing.
Jeff was saying something very similar in his session earlier on, that people do that with the multiplayer battles. They'll write half a novel by the end of it.
We get these great after-action reports on the forums where like 3 or 4 of the guys will get together and play a game, and they'll have this incredible story with like images on the maps of who conquered who when and that sort of thing. And I think it's that kind of emergent gameplay. I mean, you put as much mechanic and system and lore in there as you can, but at the end of the day, it's the conflict of all these things and the players that really makes the game unique and the genre unique. And that's a lot of the fun, I think, of 4X. It's kind of high risk, but it can be high reward.
I actually recently had a fan send me a tweet about one of his favorite generals in Empire and what he was up to, General Kevin McDowell. So,
that's amazing. Yeah. That's absolutely amazing. Yeah, Jeff, I guess we must be slightly weird being the narrative director in a genre in which so much of the story making comes from the way that the players interact with your game. I guess you both see that. What is that like? Is that a little unnerving sometimes? You're like, okay, I've put the pieces here, but we're just gonna have to see what players want to do with it.
As far as traditional narrative goes, Endless Space had essentially 0. in Endless Legend, we brought in these faction quests. So when you choose a faction, you actually live for about 2/3 of the game, the story of that faction. So you learn their history, you learn something of the history of the world and the universe and that sort of thing. So there's a little bit of traditional narrative. Most of my job is just making the events and the lore and the universe and the things you discover and the places you go interesting and captivating, and saying, yeah, one more click, one more turn. Let me see what's over in that system. You know, you really want to get that sort of compulsion in the player.
I guess there's a similar thing with Total War where it's like, we're going to be as historically accurate as we can and also make a game at the same time, and then just sort of do what you want with it.
That's right. We just see what happens, and we do have events that happen in the game, and although they are not a scripted narrative, they kind of become the narrative in the player's mind. So I think that's even more powerful than a scripted narrative.
Sure thing. Yeah. So I've visited both Amplitude and Creative Assembly, and one of the big differences between your two studios is team size. Like Amplitude is in the tens, Creative Assembly is in the hundreds in terms of staff numbers. What changes between a studio of that size and a studio of this size over here?
I don't know. So Creative Assembly, we've got about 460 people now.
That's loads.
When I started, there were 30. So I guess the biggest difference is that we have a lot more specialists. People talk about niche. Our devs can go into much deeper niches. But we've got lots of different teams. You know, we've got the Halo Wars team. We've got
Sure.
the Arena team. We've got the Warhammer team. We've got the guys working on historical. So although we've got 460 people.
What's that game called? Sorry, the one at the end.
Yeah,
Is it
we're calling
historical?
it Total War Historical.
Good. Really looking forward to that
version
one.
14.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Jeff, are you sort of looking into your future here a little bit? It's like your team is how many is that?
We're between 50 and 60 now.
Right.
So it's kind of a minnow compared to CA. But I think, well, I was saying earlier to Kevin that, you know, if you name your IP Total War, you're making a bet there that it's going to be vast and amazing and intricate and
It's
enormous.
not partial war. It's not semi-war.
Yeah,
it's total war.
It's not like Playground Struggle or something. No, it's like Total War. And I think, there's a whole different scope of needs as far as art assets, as far as the complexity of game programming. What we work on is, it's a very different style of game. Though I have to say, the first game, Endless Space, we shipped with maybe about 17 or so people in the studio, 17 or 20. And now we have about 35 working on a major game.
So it's happening to you then, yeah?
So, it may. But we're looking to move that way and thinking, well, maybe the ideal size, when we were 20, we were thinking, well, we should be about 40. We were 40, we should be about 70, and so we'll see where that goes. But, the main thing is that the advantage I see in our size is right now everybody knows everybody respects everybody. We still have very much the feeling of a small, closely knit studio, and that's really enjoyable. And that will perhaps change with time, but I think that's something that's kind of precious to us.
Although, sorry, somehow we still maintain that feeling at Creative Assembly. So, yeah.
Do you know all 400 and however many it was people that work there?
There may be one or two people's names that I don't know,
All right, cool.
and some people I don't recognize.
Just sort of, hey man, hey mate.
Hey,
it's good to
hey
see
dude,
you again.
how are you?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it.
One of the things that both studios have to think about, and Sega as the sort of umbrella of that, a big part of it is the way in which you communicate with your fan base, your audience. It's a huge deal over Amplitude. I know that the Games Together program is a core part of the studio's design, but also with Total War, because of the nature of those games, you have to change things after launch. You don't just put it out there and okay, we're done now. We'll just go and do the next game.
Yep.
Is that what's that relationship like? Because obviously, strategy fans, we said once they're in, they're really in, they're invested. And is that dialogue between you and the people that play?
Something happens. We've got this big red button. It's called
Right.
a panic button, and we go, it's not
Sure.
working. So we, obviously, we pay a lot of attention to our fans and to what they're talking about, and our attitude is that any game that we ship, we want it to be a great game. And we will do whatever we can to make it a great game, even after it's shipped. So you may have heard that Rome 2 had a little bit of struggle.
Yeah, I may have
on shipping.
heard about that.
So we spent a year after launch, continuing to develop it until we were really happy with what we had. So yeah, we're going to support any game that we ship. But that's not our intention, though. We want to ship a great game first time, but sometimes things happen.
Do you think it's slightly different with strategy games, though, because particularly your strategy games, because they're so massive and complex, like that's the appeal of them in the first place, that it's going to be impossible to get it, like, you're never going to have a perfect product at launch. You just can't. There's too much to consider. Just balance alone is going to be a nightmare to think about for months afterwards.
Yeah. So, well, first off, you know, when we go to make the decision to ship, it's not like on the shipping day, right? It's weeks or months ahead. So we look at where the project's at, and we think we're pretty confident. I think it's going on the right track. And then things can go wrong between that decision, that hard line decision that you make. Okay, we're going to ship, and then after it ships, then we pay really close attention to what the modders are doing, to what the community's saying, and in any patches, we make lots of tweaks and adjustments to all their feedback.
But do you think it is slightly different with strategy games? Like, Jeff, I can't imagine with your horse riding game, you had the same kind of dialogue back and forth as you do with Amplitude. Like, the Endless games, their game design docs are publicly available. You put out your game design docs.
We've got a lot more parameters than most other games to tweak. So, you know, it's not like we've got like ammo for 6 weapons to tweak. We have thousands of parameters. So we do have to spend a lot of time post-launch kind of twiddling all the dials.
I think in strategy games, the balance, the equilibrium is really, really difficult, particularly when we're doing these really asymmetrical factions. It's difficult to get it right. So we really need our community to find all those extreme edge cases of weird things where the stuff that we designed that we thought was so great, that worked great, and we all tested it for 100 hours in the studio. When it's tested for 10,000 hours, you find things you don't find otherwise. And I want to be really clear that this is not bug fixing. That's not what the community is for. The community is there for their ideas, for their feedback, for helping us balance, for helping us understand what doesn't work for them. And we kind of want to feel like we're developing with the community sort of looking over our shoulder. We publish our dev schedules. We let them know as soon as we can what we think the ship dates will be. If it's going to slide, we don't hide it from them because they're the people who are going to buy it. They're the ones who care most about it. You know, we really try to be transparent. We really try to work with them constantly. And yeah, like Kevin said, there's so many different variables that you're messing with in a strategy game, and it's so hard to get all that right on date X that it's really critical to keep the communication open, keep speaking with them.
Absolutely.
And we were quite interested in seeing what Amplitude's doing in this regard as well, so we're keeping a close eye on them. I don't know if they know that or not, but we are.
James, I was going to ask you specifically, with SEGA, have you found that the publishers had to think about things a little bit differently, because strategy games, it's such an intrinsic part of those games that they need to be tweaked afterwards. If you're going to make a game this big, there's a slightly different development schedule to consider.
Yeah, as the guy said, no one ever intends to release something, you know, that people have a few issues with. But once you release something into the wild, people do stuff with your product that you probably didn't even imagine that was the way they were going to play it. So we have to keep a very different sort of mindset about talking about products. And I can't remember the last product at SEGA where basically you hit release day and then you'll go, yeah, it's done, right, on to the next one.
That would be Shogun 2.
Yeah.
I guess that was one of the things I wanted to mention, actually. With Total War, it's one of the longest running strategy games that there is, like 16 years of Total War games. How is the strategy scene, I guess, or the genre, the players, everything sort of changed over that process? It sounds like you've been there for most of it.
Well, it's from our perspective, it's grown. You know, when we started, we were really the small fish on the block, and we were just kind of scratching around the edges.
Small fish on the block.
Yeah. Like that mixed metaphor is pretty good, wasn't it? So we were kind of like scratching around the edges, and then slowly it seemed like the other companies kind of faded away, and our star began to shine brighter. Although I could probably think of a better metaphor than that. But in a way, we've been gone from being the little guys to kind of being the.
You're a pretty big deal.
Yeah, the heavyweights.
Sure, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, when Total War releases, Steam knows about it.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Okay, and final question before we open up to the audience Q&A, which apparently we haven't got time for. Oh God, this might have been my fault. Sorry. If each of you could tell me, what do you think the future of the strategy genre is going to look like? We've said that Total War, 16 years, things have changed quite a lot.
Yeah.
What's next? How
Okay,
does
so I
that
got my
go?
crazy idea, right? And I don't want anybody to take this idea because it's too good.
Okay.
I really want to see like hundreds of like robots and drones fighting it out. We don't need computers anymore. We want actually like real physical stuff. Don't tell the military, although they're onto that. But.
All right. Okay, that's the next step. That's a pretty drastic next step.
Yeah.
Jeff, how about you? What do you see from the 4X side of things? How are things going to change? What are you going to be able to accomplish that hasn't been possible in the past?
I think there's a few sort of vectors of change. I had a question today. What about having one of the Endless games on a pad? You know, they don't have the power yet. They don't have the sheer candle power to process the AI in the background. In a couple generations, they will. So I think we're going to see the platforms start to change.
Sure.
I think we'll see the interfaces start to change. It's only a matter of time before somehow somebody puts a VR cask and you're walking through the middle of the battle, waving an axe and telling your orcs to turn around and run this way. I think there's gaming in general, and the technology is going so many interesting places. I think strategy is going to be a phenomenal place to be for the next 10, 15 years.
I'll answer that in a more serious way as well.
Okay.
I totally agree with that. I could really see Total War branching out into all different platforms. I'm not saying that we have a plan to do that, but I can see it's definitely possible now. Strange thing is we have a version of Rome, the original Rome, coming out on iPad.
It's so weird.
iPad.
I don't understand.
And who doesn't want to play Total War in VR? Like honestly,
Yeah.
think about the battlefield and like moving your guys
Right.
around.
Have you guys must have seen the Vive Portal demo, right? There's a bit where you open up a drawer and you look down at all these people moving around, and I was immediately thinking Total War.
Yeah,
like why
exactly.
am I not doing that?
Yeah.
So if you could get on that would be great. You've got loads of staff by the sounds of it. You could just make
They're
that
busy
happen.
at the moment.
And
Yeah.
okay, James, who are you acquiring next? Obviously, is the next question. Which next big strategy?
Yeah, do you want me to
developer are you
name
gonna
them? No. I think that the thing for me to look at in terms of where stuff goes, and this is not looking at our stuff, this is looking at other people's games that I try and play, is that opening barrier sometimes. I can find games on Steam, and between starting it to when you have to be good at it, the tutorial and the intro is so complicated, it's a barrier to people joining and playing and enjoying. Ultimately, I really want to play that game, but it's just too complex. The UI, the way they've, got me into playing it hasn't been done effectively, and I think that's going to be something a lot more people spend time on, especially with Steam refunds. Okay, because that opening hour of when you're playing a game is becoming super important.
Yep.
And if people are just like, well, I've got no idea what I'm supposed to be doing, then the more power to the consumer. So people are going to have to get that integration, that way you play games done.
I love Crusader Kings 2, man. It is an amazing game, but the first hour of it is intense. There's quite a lot to take in. Anyway, yes, thank you so much to everyone for joining. I'm sorry for hogging all the questions. I didn't realize I was doing that. And could we have a warm round of applause for my wonderful guests here? We've got James, Kevin, and Jeff. They're all involved in some pretty crazy games. Thank you so much.